Director of Customer Success at Chorus. I'm joined by Mike Stevens, who is the founder of InsightPlatforms. Mike, we're super excited to have you on today. I know we're going to get into some topics about a post-COVID world, which
Thank you.
is going to be very top of mind, hopefully here soon as we kind of roll down this path we've been on. So thank you for joining.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So talk to us about InsightPlatforms. Just kind of give us the high level view, what exactly is it and where, what type of sources can people find and why did you start it?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, InsightPlatforms it started life as a directory of technology tools and data sources for the research industry. So research, analytics, CX, UX research as well. And I've been working as a consultant to help insight teams and agencies build their technology portfolio to help them understand how they can get more efficient using technology. And it struck me there's no real central place for people to go and look for these kinds of tools. So I started putting a database together and turned that into an online directory. And now there's nearly like 1,000 different solutions out there for, tools like Chorus, but obviously, all sorts of other different applications for qualitative, quant, big data analytics, down to analyzing pictures, all sorts of different tools. So that was where the business started. It's actually grown into really three things. So we've got a directory where people can search and find for free the tools they're looking for. We have thought leadership and learning. So we have webinars, ebooks, videos, courses, actually training courses now that we're launching. And then the third pillar is events. So we run quarterly online summits, virtual summits, and we're just about to launch demo days where companies like yours will be able to demo their software platform to an audience online. So those three things really. So, events, learning, and directory. That's what the proposition is.
That's great. Since we've been in kind of this new state of the world, has there been anything in particular that people are really searching out for, are using the platform for, or you're using your website for?
Yeah, there's some big shifts in what people are looking for in terms of the tools. And the biggest one is online qualitative research. So almost overnight, a third of the world went into lockdown. You couldn't have focus groups. You couldn't have, going to the grocery store and doing research in store. So actually online qualitative research using real-time text chat or video chat or mobile, diaries, that kind of thing, huge. So if you talk to any of those companies that are supplying those services and software, you'll hear that they're exhausted, they've never had so much opportunity, they're flat out. So that's one. I think social media listening, it's actually broader than just social listening, because most of the platforms will have more data sources than just social media. But because it's instant and because consumer attitudes are changing so quickly in response to daily news, getting that constant feed of what are they talking about and what are their priorities, then that's also been very, very busy as well. So really it's things that have done well as a consequence of the new environment where people really want to understand what's happening with the consumer, but the old ways of engaging are just not so apparent. There's a company that called Attest, which runs sort of automated agile research, and they had a new funding round last week, and as part of the announcement for that, they said that they'd seen 2.5 times their usual volumes since the lockdowns were announced. So there are some parts of the industry are doing very, very well. Not, others I think are struggling quite badly. So, we need to say that a lot of agencies, a lot of traditional research methods are really struggling given the limitations. But some of these new technology tools, agile testing, qualitative research, social listening, they're all doing very well.
Yeah, that's all great points. And I know even for us, they're all things that we've even looked to internally just for our own brand. So that makes total sense. Kind of piggybacking off of that, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities once we kind of, again, get out of this state that we're currently in. And it sounded like you had been working on a piece where you had some topics or some just kind of directional things that you thought were going to come out of this. Maybe let's touch base on those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess related to what I've just said, sure. The in the post-COVID landscape, there are two schools of thought. One is everything's going to be different, and you won't recognize the world, and it will be, a completely new environment. And the other is it's amazing how quickly people forget and readjust, and get back to normal. So, somewhere in between those, I think we'll find the truth. But in reality, what's happening in the research industry is reflecting what's happened in a lot of industries, in that changes that have been coming along for a while have suddenly taken off. It's a little bit like this. We've all seen this kind of graphic. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
If it's going the wrong way around on the video, but the hockey stick curve for exponential growth of the virus that we've all been trying to protect ourselves from. It's very similar to what's been happening with a lot of these kinds of technology tools in the research industry, in that they've been here for a while, and they've been slowly growing and gaining, and then suddenly we have a shock and it drives their adoption through the roof. So this whole gradually then suddenly thing, I think, means there are some technologies and some ways of working which will be sticking post COVID. So we will find actually that certain ways of working will have changed dramatically. And I think some of these are, they are things that have been growing steadily anyway. So I think that the first for me is the growth of qualitative research at scale. So where you have lots of, unstructured data, comments that people can put into chatbots or into discussions online, being able to make sense of, rather than 6 people in a focus group, you might have 60 or even 600 in a discussion online, which you can then very rapidly analyze the content and generate some good insights from. So, we're calling it qual at scale. Really, it's quantitative work. Its unit of input is unstructured data rather than numbers and closed responses. But that's, I think, one big area that we'll start to see. You might know tools like Remesh, and there's a part of the Delvinia group. There's a company called Chris in Vancouver. There's a company, Rival Technologies. So these are all working with conversational data to be able to quantify it at scale, very, very quickly analyze what's going on. So I think that's one area that will go, because research budgets will be under a lot of pressure. The practicality of doing qualitative research in person is still going to be, it's going to be a long time before focus group facilities can open up, and run at the kind of scale that they used to. So I suspect these sort of methods will be adopted on trial, will start to stick, just because you can get so much more data and insight so much more quickly.
Yeah.
So that's one. I think there's one on the hockey stick curve. I think another which is sort of related, it kind of overlaps a bit with what I've been talking about, and a little bit with the social listening side of things, is the use of online resources, whether that's social media, whether that's comments, whether that's reviews on Amazon or Alibaba, using all of that, aggregating the unstructured data to predict innovation, or to identify white space, or to find trends in a particular category. So there's a company called Tastewise, which ingests loads of photos of meals from restaurants and from social media, and it will analyze. It's got hundreds of thousands of restaurant menus, so for food delivery, for in-home eating, and for in venue. And they've analyzed all of these, and they identify which are the kind of rising trends, which are the ones that are sinking. Are people still into kale? Are they going to be into some new wonder food? So finding very industry specific applications for this kind of forecasting research using data that's available, I think, is another area that's going to take off, because it gives a much stronger quantified base to trend forecasting than you could get from the kind of trend spotting where you've got, you know, a few hundred people around the world who are cultural experts. Here you've just got hundreds of thousands of data points to be able to get more robust. So that's another, I think. And these are, I mean, these are all kind of through an AI or an analytics lens, you know, machine learning. I think the third, and this is something that I think will transform agencies. So research agencies, the best ones will be fine. I think a lot are going to struggle because they have been, you know, overhauling their methods for some time, trying to get more efficient. This is a real shock. So we've had, you know, people in this part of the world, we've had, you know, sort of 60-70% of research agencies have been furloughing their staff. So they've been taking government money to keep them on the payroll, but not having any work for them. It's likely that we'll see reduced headcount in the industry. And that's going to create pressure when it comes to growth for, you know, to deliver when clients are actually coming back with budget. But there are tools that, you know, where historically in a slightly less efficient way, agencies might have employed research execs to write commentary on, let's say, brand tracking reports or customer experience tracking reports or market panel data or all sorts of things that have a repetitive dimension. And actually what you can, there are tools now like narrative science, so automated insights is a, Wordsmith is a tool that generates language from data inputs. So if you've got a brand tracker, instead of sitting there at 9 o'clock at night typing, you know, brand preference reduced by 3% in the last quarter, which is just soul sucking stuff for somebody to do. If you have, you know, a tool like this, then it will generate the language for you according to certain rules automatically, write the headlines on the chart, and then it just takes a little bit of time for somebody to check, you know, has this been properly annotated, and then, you know, create an executive summary that's actually written by a researcher. So I think the automation of things that have historically been done, like writing commentary on reports, that kind of thing, is going to be something that agencies especially will be investing in once they're through the pain of all of this.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm gonna have to have a drink.
No, those are all really great points. It sounds like, you know, machine learning or AI is really going to kind of take off in the industry to really propel people to move forward, and even people or agencies that are a little bit stagnant with some of the growth that they've been wanting to do in relation to change. It sounds like that's really going to be the thing that's holding them together.
Sure, absolutely. And then there's a couple of other interesting areas, I think, as well. One is the use of, for better word, visual insights. So being able to analyze the content of images or video, and that has lots of different applications. So in social media, for instance, then it might be a question of harvesting, you know, tens of thousands of images from Instagram to identify who's consuming our brand, or is our brand logo visible and in what context, and is it indoors, outdoors, is it with a group of people, all that sort of stuff. So there's a analyzing what people are posting spontaneously. But then there are some other fantastic applications for, you know, qualitative research. So for analyzing video on the fly, for if you're using, you know, a mobile ethnography tool to get somebody to document their journey to work or how they, you know, how they cook at home, then you can train models once you've got enough video to be able to identify, okay, so this is where, you know, people are, you know, using a knife or using a blender, or, you know, these are the ingredients that they've got. So you can actually start to analyze the content of video based on the images that are in there. And you can start to determine, you know, patterns and trends, and you can, you know, you can cut video based on, you know, the presence or absence of a brand image or behavior or, you know, an object. So there's some really creative stuff that this computer vision technology will be enabling for qualitative research. There's a fantastic, so QualSites is a very powerful platform for qualitative research, and it uses video to be able to, you know, to collect the qualitative data. But then there's an AI layer, both for transcription of what people are talking about, computer vision to recognize what's happening in the video, and you can pull those things together and do some really creative things that would have taken, months of work and lots of individual judgment previously. Now you can train models for them. So I think that's one of them. I think the last one for me is there's a huge opportunity for the research industry to build in more behavioral analytics into the work that it does. So not just asking questions about what people have done or what they intend to do, or but connecting that with whether that's sales data or geolocation data or e-commerce data or on-site behavior. So there's a huge number of data sources that are being packaged by vendors in the behavioral analytics space, and we've seen a lot of this data looking at what's been happening through the COVID pandemic, where early on, Google released the changes in location behavior by different categories of destinations all over the world. So people are starting to understand that you can really see meaningful patterns in in the geolocation data that's collected by smartphones. And there are some companies that will package this stuff, will work with research teams and insight teams to make sense of it. So Augury does smartphone geolocation data. They're very good for understanding the path to purchase or people's behavior when they're shopping in particular retail facilities, that kind of thing. So I think the growth here, I think, will be driven, as things start to open back up, as people want to understand where are the pockets of, where is retail coming back, where are different consumer groups in different parts of the country starting to go back into, whether it's into restaurants or into retail or that kind of analysis. And I think there'll be a much bigger adoption of these types of behavioral insight platforms.
Yeah.
So that's for me, there's a big change. All of these are things that have been in place for a while. They've been kind of growing along, but I think the response, coming through the pandemic and the changes afterwards, I think we'll see some of these things go vertical in terms of their adoption, just because they save so much money, they save so much time, you can do things at scale. And underneath, what underpins a lot of it is the machine learning and the kind of AI models.
Yeah, that's great. That was all very insightful. I think for myself, it's taking a step back and thinking more so about what time. Something that resonated with me is in relation to writing commentary on reports. I can't tell you in my former agency life how many times and how many hours were spent just literally typing things that were redundant to someone that they could see on the screen. So I think that that's something that's huge that's going to come out. AI has kind of been this trend and this niche thing that's been associated with so many different types of industries, but I think you did a good job of covering the basis of this is something that's applicable for anyone. And especially when it comes to data and data science, I think that's something that we are all looking for, and we know that data exists, and that's what's really going to propel us forward.
Sure. Yeah. So I think we'll see a lot of changes over the next sort of few months and years for sure. But exciting time, difficult times right now for a lot of, particularly in the agency side of things. But hopefully, we'll come back with renewed vigor.
Yeah, well, what you laid out, I think there's a lot of really great things to look forward to. So, Mike, again, thank you so much for your time. I definitely enjoyed the conversation.
Okay.
I know our viewers will as well. Everyone, you can find all of our videos on our course page. If you have a suggestion for a video, please leave a commentary in the survey below. But again, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.